And we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Global Citizens. My name is Kelvin. I am the show's host. And of course, I am also its creator. So, first off, for those of you who are living in the western part of the world, let me introduce to you something called 端午节快乐. Today is actually a special celebration. It is called the Dragon Boat Festival month. So for those who are Chinese and is celebrating it, I'm wishing it for you. So my guest for today is Miss Janelle Harrington Yamazaki. Oh, sorry, let me rectify. Mrs. Janelle Harrington Yamazaki. Janelle is the founder of Provox, which add value to professional business people around the world who are struggling to speak in English by a more professional means. Originally from Butler, Pennsylvania, Janelle is currently residing in Taiwan in an intercultural marriage with a Japanese husband, raising their 4-year-old TCK son. So she is an award-winning coach and who has the individual satisfaction of each client close to her heart. And personally, Janelle is a very focused individual that offers the best quality classes to help clients become outstanding in their business place. So without further ado, I'll pass the spotlight back to her again. So Janelle, how are you?
Very good. Thank you, Calvin. It's great to be here with you.
I hope I've done enough justice for your introduction.
Very much so. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so for those of you who are tuning in for the very first time, Global Citizen is an online platform. It's a weekly live stream, or in certain cases whereby I might not have the time for it, it's always a 4-episode live stream monthly whereby I invite people who has experienced an intercultural life, whether they are third culture kids primarily because I am one, along with expatriates, global nomads, and those who might not have lived that life but have an extensive experience in it due to their career requiring them to travel all over the places. So the main purpose of this is intercultural studies and intercultural awareness, so that you can, who may never not have lived this life, understand that this is not just being in a place that is put in a brochure. This is not an extended vacation. This is life whereby we have to learn to change who we are. We have to adapt who we are in order to adapt to a certain kind of environment just to feel accepted. So yeah, Janelle, I'm gonna give you your very first question, and yeah, hopefully you're prepared for it.
Yep, we're ready. No problem.
Wonderful, wonderful. All right. So first off is how would you define home? Is it still in the US, Taiwan, or Japan? Which one of these three is still is the place that you geographically will call home?
Well, of course, when people ask me where I'm from, I always identify that I am from the United States. I was born and raised there, but I also have been out of the US for almost half of my life. I'm getting very close to half of my life. So, of course, home changes. And I love how you worded this question to me earlier. You said to me, a place that is not with your loved ones, where do you identify? Because I really do say that with your loved ones is where home is, wherever you are. But many times when I go back to the US, I do feel comfortable that it's like people that speak my language and do things and things I can relate with very easily. But every time I'm back home, my mom always says to me, oh, you've become more and more Asian, because I do realize my thinking and the way I react to things has definitely changed over the time. So for now, I've been in Taiwan the past 15 years. I would really have to say this has become like home for me because I've spent such a long time here.
Fantastic, fantastic. And as an Asian, I say good for you.
Thank you.
There you go. Okay, I want to ask do you mind telling us how you first got started to currently moving to Taiwan? So how do you first dealt with the loneliness living in a foreign country? What is your experience with the culture shock? And earlier you mentioned when you return back to the States, your mom says that, oh, you're becoming more Asian. How was the experience when you first hear about the reverse culture shock?
Sure. So moving to Taiwan is not the first country I've lived outside of. So I lived in Africa before I came to Asia for a short time. And then from there, I came to Asia. So I have had some rounded out experience, and I've been to over 30 some different countries in the world. So this has helped me. But once you come to a country, and like you said, it's not vacation, really changes drastically. And so loneliness will happen no matter where you are. And for myself, I realized that I really had to make friends right away here if I was going to survive mentally and emotionally. I think there's been a study done here in Taiwan by some psychiatrists, and I work with one of the doctors actually that worked on this project. And he said when people move abroad, there's two types of people. There's one that wants to blend in and just become very localized. They embrace the language, the food, the culture, everything. They just want to be just like that, the locals. Or there's the other that sort of resists the change. So they insist on their own way of eating, and they insist on their own way. They just don't want to bend or give in. And not that one is better than the other. That's not what I'm saying, but I definitely fit in with the first bunch of people. It's quite easy for me to blend in, easy for me to want to blend in, whether it's language, food, or culture. So I think that helped a lot to make friends quite quickly. And the other thing is we have a famous saying in English. We say there's more happiness in giving than there is in receiving. So I realized giving locally helped me a lot more too. So as soon as I arrived 15 years ago, I volunteered in a program to help the community locally. And I still do it even now. For about 20 years, I've volunteered for the same group. And this has helped tremendously because you're working shoulder to shoulder with other Taiwanese and some other nationalities. And it really gives you a sense of purpose, but also a sense of like a family is there with you with some similar goals. So that's helped tremendously. You talked about the reversed culture shock. And honestly, I would say, I don't have much reverse culture shock, but that's a bit of a lie as I started thinking through the years. I think one of the biggest problems, or let's say
I didn't do this nearly 100 episodes, and then you can tell me, no, I don't feel it. Nah, sorry.
Yeah, I know. So after I thought about it, I was like, oh, you're so right about this. I think the thing that changes is your mental thinking pattern and the way you address issues or things in your life. You really start thinking quite differently. And so for myself, the culture shock is not about food, not about people or things or buying or stuff around me. But I realized the way I think is like really different compared to many local people. And it's not that it's better thinking or worse thinking. It's not that at all. But I'll just give you like an example. Like sometimes people back home will say to me in the US, like, oh, my job is so stressful. I'm going to die. I can't handle it. And as I'm listening, I'm thinking, tell me where the stressful part is. Because if you've had an Asian boss as your boss, you know that work performance is like to a new level. Yeah. So like for me, I just feel like that's not so stressful. Like, I don't understand why you're getting so worked up over this. And then I realized like our culture thinking has definitely changed over the time. And maybe living abroad has helped you have more of a wider view of things in general. Maybe you've had that experience. I don't know.
To add on a layer to that, imagine that Asian boss is your father.
Oh.
So that's even more stressful. By the way, it's because if it's work, yes, it's stressful. But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, you can just head home and then say, okay, it's just a bad day of work. You meet up with your friends, or maybe sometimes with your colleagues, or if you're in a relationship, you meet up with your significant others. You go for a drink, you have a little, you enjoy yourself, and the next day, you carry on with the activity again.
Yeah.
Maybe hopefully it will be a better day. But if it's your father, you end up in the same house as him. So once the work is done, whatever anger, whatever stress that you still have, you still see him. And here's the thing: if it's a boss, there will be times whereby you may have the chance to counter it, and it's because maybe a certain situation is out of your hands, and any mistakes that's happened is not directly on you. But if it's your father, no, whatever mistakes is a mistake, whether you like it or you don't like it. It's always you are at the end of the stick. Even though you can have 190% correct, the last 10%, if it's wrong, it's wrong. So yeah,
So you
that
can
was.
relate. You can relate, just in
Oh
a
yes,
different area, but at home. Yes.
oh yes. I relate. I relate to that very
Yeah.
very well. Thank you. Okay, okay. I'm glad you mentioned that part. Okay, so yeah, mind sharing with us though, what do you feel has been a blessing to this life, living this global life, and yet what do you feel, just to make it fair, a curse? This is actually not my words. It's actually one of my listeners who has ever asked me before. What do you feel that living this kind of life is a curse? So yeah, what do you feel has been its positive and at the same time has been its negative?
Well, ultimately, I'd say the positive is it helps you have an open mind. Um, uh, I'll give you an example for this. And like at first, this was hard for me to choke down when I first came, especially to Taiwan. But, you know, like in customer service here, like in Taiwan, China, Hong Kong, is quite different than being like in Japan or the US. Um, Here, you know, in the US, they cater to everything to help you. Oh, you want to return the item? Oh, no problem. We will help you. And they're just happy to have a customer. But here, it's like a little bit more direct. And you are not always right, even though you're the customer. And you can't always return things you want to. And yes, you are wrong, even though you're the customer. So like at first when I came to Taiwan, I felt shocked, like, how dare you say that to me? But then I realized over time, like, this is just a cultural difference. It doesn't mean it's better or worse. And there's some many good things of it because they're very direct to you. And when you're very direct to them, they don't take offense over that. It's just, oh, okay, you want to be forward with me? Okay, no problem. And maybe it's a more clear, direct way of communication. At the beginning, I found that as like the downfall, very difficult to choke down. But over the years, I found like, no, it's not actually a downfall. It's just a way of thinking is quite different. And then they go to other places, like local Taiwanese go to Japan or the US, and then they say, oh, people are too nice or too friendly. It goes the other extreme. Like they don't understand. How can you be that nice? Yeah. So it's just a way of being raised and a way of thinking. So even though I found that as like really hard at the beginning, with years and time, I will say that I find it is just learning a different way to communicate. So it's not necessarily a bad way. But by all means, I'd say one of the biggest blessings is being able to have an open mind, to see one situation, but maybe from 5 or 6 different perspectives. And when you live locally in your own hometown, home city, you might not have that ability to see it in so many different angles. And so, like when I first would see problems, I always thought of my way I used to do back home. But then living in Asia, and even short time that I was in Africa, I realized, whoa, there's so many different ways to view or solve the problem. And eventually getting married to an Asian, my husband who's Japanese, that even changed me more because I realized like, wow, we definitely think so differently. But it doesn't mean one way is right or wrong. It's just how do you want to address the problem or the situation? And how do you want to keep moving forward after that? So I would definitely take that as the biggest blessing. And ultimately, having great friends of any nationality has been a great joy for me.
Okay, just for the viewers, in for your experience for cultural immersion, it is actually azan prayers time here in Indonesia. So you will hear the song. So please don't worry about that. This is just part of the local custom here. So yeah. All right. Yeah. Earlier you mentioned on your husband. His name is Shingo, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I wanna ask something about this. Is because recently with what happened with COVID-19, it there is a certain positive and negative to it. for one thing is that the positivity is the realization of Asian representation, is because there has been multiple events in history and the depiction of how an Asian is seen in the eyes of the world. So growing up in Singapore, one of my safe haven was actually watching cable television. Is because there's American programs. Is because at that time I was still not yet adjusted to my living environment, and as a result, I tend to speak in a certain way to emulate what I was growing up with. However, as a kid, of course, it wasn't much of an issue. But as you grow older, you tend to realize is that, how come there's nobody who looks like me? And if they do, they kind of look very pathetic. It looks really degraded. Maybe it's just in a way that it makes you question everything about yourself. It's like, is this how the world see me as an Asian? Am I that pathetic, or am I somebody who does not deserve respect or any kind of positive treatment? So yeah, heading back to you, your husband is an Asian, yeah? So do you mind sharing with us a bit on how do you two get together at the first place? Was there any language barrier? And also, if you are capable, if you are willing to share with us, can you dispel certain stereotypes that is more negative towards an Asian man because you are married to one?
Sure. So I actually met my husband in Taiwan. But before he was in Taiwan, he was living in the US as well. So he lived a huge part of his life there, from high school into university, and after university also working there. So I would say when we got together and we got married, it wasn't actually that we had massive language problems or culture problems. I'd say some of the biggest problems we had were men and women problem, like men leave the toilet seat up and the woman said, "Why are you put that down?" Like the things like that. I would always be yelling at him, "Put that toilet seat down." But
Fair
actual
enough.
actual cultural problem, there were some, but it didn't seem to inhibit us so greatly. But now that we've been married about 10 years and I look past over the years, I can definitely see there have been some things in our marriage that we've learned how to work with. And, there's stereotypes with everyone. And I remember an older Japanese gentleman who also was in an interracial marriage. He gave me some good advice. He said, don't just leave those stereotypes and assume they apply to everyone. He's like, for example, people see you as American and might say, "Oh, she only likes hamburgers and hot dogs." But he's like, "Is that true?" And I said, "No, not at all. I don't even like it." And he's like, "See, that's the point, is those stereotypes might not be true." And so the same with your husband, like just because he's Asian or Japanese doesn't mean he's going to love sushi only or some stereotype you have in your mind. So try to be more open. And that advice really helped me greatly when we got married. And yeah, we've been together 10 years, so a long time. But I will say something about the stereotypes, which I think some things are quite funny. When I was engaged and was planning to get married, like maybe 4 or 5 friends and acquaintances that were Japanese women all came to me privately and gave me a lot of advice. And the number one advice all of them said was, run for your life. Don't marry a Japanese. It's your biggest mistake you'll make in your life. And I was like, whoa, that's one, saying that is one thing, but 5 people coming to say that to you is like definitely to a new level. So I was like, okay. And of course, my question is, why? Why do you say this? So my husband is from Kyushu Island, and they are very well known for being male chauvinistic in the Japanese community. So for them, it's like, you're marrying a Kyushu man. This is like the worst kind of man you could ever marry in Japan. How could you do this? You were just throwing your life away. In their mind, that's how they have. But anyways, I was like, oh, this scared me when we were dating. So I did ask my husband straight out front, like, we just got to iron some problems out. And like, I need to know what your expectation is in a marriage. Like, does the wife only do all the cooking and cleaning, or do you help? Or is this like, you were cut to be the slave in the family. So of course my husband laughed because he lived in the US so long. He's like, who is telling you this information? And when I explained the situation I had, he goes, wow. He's like, it is true. Kyushu men have a bad reputation, but he came from, I'd say, a very open family, not so traditional Japanese family. And of course, living abroad for at least like 10 or more years in Western culture definitely helped him, I'd say, be more open-minded.
Give me a minute.
Okay.
Seriously? Seriously? Okay, wow. Come on, guys. It's not fair. Come on. Not everybody follows a certain stereotype of just a certain reputation. Come on. That's not. This is 2021.
Well, when I did ask about male chauvinism, I asked them, what does that mean in Japanese? Because, like, I don't know. But, you know, they started explaining it clearly to me. And I started thinking in my mind, like, that's exactly how my grandpa is. And my dad, to some extent, like the wife cooks at home, does the cleaning, has the babies. And so I actually took it as like, this is not just Japanese culture. I think there's a lot of cultures that have this mentality. So it's a little harsh to say this so specifically about one province, one area, and it's all the men.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, the thing is that I think times are changing nowadays. I mean, I mean, personally, for me, I will be very supportive if my own spouse, I'm single, by the way. So, if my own spouse want to focus on her career, to me, I think is that her success should be considered our success instead of her personal success. That should be how a household's supposed to be. I think that's how I feel. But the thing is that if this is something that I told to my parents or my late grandparents, maybe this is not something that could be accepted. Is because that was the norm back then, but times are changing nowadays, and everything has to adapt to it, whether we like it or not. That is also one of the reasons why I created Global Citizens. Also, is because it facilitates an outlet to let people understand the changes, that the difference in mindsets and perspective from living in a different country. So
I have to say, Calvin, I want to agree with your comment on that about like letting the wife or the female have the opportunity to pursue her career, or, you know, to have something going on in her life. I do admire my husband because he does let me go and say, yeah, sure, whatever you're happy with. And listening to your attitude as well, I think it's really refreshing, really good way to have.
Thank you. Okay. On that note, though, since this show is, of course, primarily is a representation for third culture kids, you have one of your own. You have a binational son who is half Japanese, half American, who grows up in Taiwan. So,
Correct.
yeah, I actually want to ask for this is that how is your relationship like with him? So, because this is something that I actually had. I actually was calming my friend down because actually at that time he has always been somebody who is always politically correct. So at that time I need to calm him down before he embarrassed himself all over social media and he goes viral. So yeah, I think our mindset in the West is that it gives you, in a sense, as you grow older, you will have more freedom, and what you do with that freedom, how responsible you are with that freedom, is the sign of maturity. Whereas in Asia, is based on how capable you are in not on in making your own decision, but how obedient you are to your parents. So, do you mind sharing with us, though, what is your approach to parenting your son is like? And I believe you mentioned to me before he start asking you already is, "Mommy, who am I?" Actually,
Yes.
because yeah,
So
please.
he's only 4 years old, and last week is the first time he's ever said to me, "Mom, am I white or am I black?" And I took that as a shock. And my question to him is, why would you ask this? Like, whoa, where is this coming from a 4-year-old? And he said, I watched on TV about cross culture or interracial culture in some cartoon. So he's like, I just wonder, what am I then? And I said, oh, that's a good question. I said, most people would define you as half white and half Asian. But I said, the most important thing is that we're all humans with the same needs, the same desires, and that's what really matters. And I found, scientists have said this, and I find it very true, that humans have the same needs. We all want to be happy. We want to be with our families. We want to have enough resources to be able to take care of our family, to make them feel safe and to make them feel secure. And I think wherever I go in the world, I have seen this. And I also have instilled this in my son, that it doesn't really matter who we are, where we are in the world. We're all humans. And that's more important to know, is that we're humans with the same needs, the same wants, same desires. So I know we've talked about the obedience part, like the Asian, of course, I've taught here and I've worked here in Asia. So I've seen this requirement for kids just to be obedient. Don't say your opinion. Don't express what you think. Just do it and be quiet. Stay out of my hair, kind of thing. But I think being in different cultures and having a more open mind, I've sort of had a more open mind. And as well as talking with my husband, we both are quite free with the way we think. So actually, I had read a book and they gave 5 top things for helping your child. And I wrote this actually, and I put it on our refrigerator. So every day it reminds me, especially to help my son. And I'll read it to you because it's quite different from Asian, but also a little different from Western thinking too. But I find it very helpful. It has 5 top things to do for your child to help them to have a happy life in the family. 1 is tell them you love them. 2, give them time. That means give time when they talk, give time when they eat, give time when they play. 3, listen, acknowledge them, let them express themselves. 4, don't expect them to be an adult. And 5, when you do discipline with love and discernment. And so I've used this as my marker. I mean, it's quite different than what my parents did with me and very different from what my husband's parents did with him. And I just feel like I want to forge my own way, a way of being loving, open, having good communication and free way to express ourselves, but also helping you get on the right track. Because, of course, I don't want to raise a son who's just, breaks the law and is in trouble all the time. But I do want to help him to be on the right track in life.
We don't want that.
Yeah, so we need some boundaries. Yeah. So I try to live by these 5 principles to help him. And I realize that they do help greatly. But, of course, the way people view him is very, very different. Yeah.
Do you mind sending me all that 5 advice? I will be putting it as your caption later on your IGTV.
Sure, okay. No problem.
I love that mindset. The thing is this. I've had several intercultural coaches who themselves are TCK moms, I've only had one who's a TCK dad, and that is actually our mutual friend, and that is Chris.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Okay, Chris is not a coach actually, but yeah, he's a TCK dad. So that's okay, fair enough. Yeah, the thing is that one of the questions that has been asked for me before is, how should I raise my multicultural kid? So I told them before is that don't try to raise them to be a multicultural adult. Just raise them to be decent, respectful, loving human being. That's it. Because the thing is that from no matter how old you are, you're always going to have that question. But the thing is that if you are still somebody who are questioning about it, it does not mean it defines your very identity. Because if you are a wonderful person, no matter where you are, people will gravitate towards you. There will be people who's willing to help you, and all of the intercultural life that actually forge who you are will comes as a bonus. Maybe sometimes it comes as a curse, but the thing is that life is not easy at the first place. There's always challenges here and there, but the thing is that if you have developed the right mechanism to deal with it, then all of this will be able to be overcome, and it makes you a better individual. So that's what I've always suggested.
Yeah, to go off of that just a little bit, I mean, being a mom of a multicultural child, I often tell myself, like, if you were his size right now, just small and little, and in this situation, what would you want? And I always try to put myself in that place. I mean, I didn't grow up speaking 3 languages like my son does, so sometimes I can't relate. But anytime I put myself there, I think like, well, I would be screaming, or I would be angry, or I'd be throwing a fit, and like, oh, well, no wonder he's throwing a fit right now, or struggling, or like he tells me he hates Chinese class. You know, he always says to me, I don't want to go Chinese class. Don't make me go, please. But you know, and then I think about it. I think, oh, I probably would say the same thing. So I think that's one small advice I would definitely give is put yourself in that child's situation as best as you can in your imagination. And it will help you really understand what they're going through, and then also adjust your reaction to them in a better way.
Just to let him know, I don't like to go to Chinese classes myself when I was a kid. In fact, my Chinese only started improving in a sense from 3 years ago, because if not, because I need it for my job. So not to worry, it's something that develops over time. And in fact, you may not like it, but the thing is that it is still a part of you. And in case there will be time whereby you will need help with him, give me a text. I speak 2 of the 3 languages that he speaks. My third one is, of course, Indonesian, and
Yeah.
I have a certain experience living the way he does. So yeah, I think I'm quite aware about it. But he mentioned he's 4, yeah? Look out for when he's in 6 more years or to 12 more years. That will be the more of the biggest headaches, because that is when they will start asking all of their identity questions.
I'm bracing myself for that. When that comes up, we'll give you a ring. You can help us out.
Thank you. All right. Okay. Yeah. So we've had wonderful time actually talking about your loved ones, your husband, and your son Yan. So, of course, now I need to jump into your career. So you are the founder of Provox, and in the past you actually worked with in the same company as Chris, yeah, at Berlitz. So do you mind sharing with us about your career journey, and yeah, what was the experience like working with the intercultural community within Berlitz, and why actually you decided to create Provox?
So I will say.
Oh wait, just to add on a bit. It doesn't. I don't mean to offend you, but when I was actually researching your company, I found out that Provox actually is kind of like a tubing to assist with speech therapy. So I was quite confused. It's like, wait, did I got the wrong website? So thank God I found the right one. So. Yeah, apologies.
You're right. Well, actually, if you know what Provox stands for, Pro stands for professional. Vox is the Latin word for language or speech. So yes, I did know there's another pharmaceutical company that is dealing with the speech. Yes, but that's not us. I'll say
just to clarify, guys, just to clarify that in case you guys got the wrong website, I've attached the right website, so that you don't get confused which one is Janelle's actual company.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. I will say the journey through Asia of learning. I've spent most of my time in what companies call themselves as teaching English as a second language, but I found personally, many people have incredible English skills in the business world, because that's mainly where I've worked is in working with big businesses. And then they still come to me all the time saying, I have problems in my meetings. I have problems here. I have problems there. I need help. And as you're listening to their language, you're thinking, no, you don't. Actually, your language is incredible. But then I started little by little understanding they have major cultural problems. It's not language so much. So I started incorporating in all my classes, English classes, just cultural knowledge and cultural learning, cross-cultural knowledge. And I'd say not many companies are big into that. Berlitz touches on it very briefly. But once I started working with Provox and working on launching this, I really stood back and I said, who do I want to help? And I do want to help businessmen, professional businessmen and women. And what is our focus? Our focus is to be bridging this problem we have. Yes, we will help you with your language. No problem. We're happy to do that. But also we want to gap this cultural issue that you may be having. And so let me give you a real life example with one of my clients. He works for Google, and he's Taiwanese client, and then he's doing a business meeting with his counterpartner at Google, also in California. So he's Taiwanese. His colleague is a Western American girl. And in his mind, he had a meeting. He said to her, oh, whatever her name is, you look so tired today. Are you okay? Thinking he's showing concern to her. And then he said, I don't know what happened, but she just yelled at me and then shut the video off and then closed the whole meeting. And I said, oh, what did I do wrong? Like, I'm just trying to be nice to her. So later, after some coaching and time of talking and also finding his colleague and figuring out what's going on, I saw that it's not a language problem. His English was perfect. Her English is perfect. It's her mother tongue. But the cultural gap was huge. So for him, his concern was, I'm saying you're tired because if you need help, our team will support you and take some of the project on. So let us help you. And her viewpoint was, you said I'm tired. I look old and ugly. And how can you say that to a woman in the professional business that I look old and ugly? And I'm like, oh, I can see both sides very clearly. And realizing that, wow, we really have a big cultural gap here. Fortunately, we were able to fix it, talk both sides. She realized, oh, he wants to help me. Oh, I'm so sorry. I hung up on you in the meeting. Yes, I need your help. Please support my team. And then my client, of course, he said, I learned to never say this again in a meeting. I said, well, that's good. We both learned. So I think these are some of the bridges that we are working with in helping our clients get over, and be able to be successful.
Yeah, I have a personal history with that too, because living in Indonesia is that the work environment tend to eliminate boundaries between what is professional and what is personal. So I grew up in Singapore most of my life, so I'm used to understand that in a work setting, it means it's completely professional. Sure, there'll be a time whereby you get to break that boundaries, you get to know somebody on a more interpersonal basis, but that should not be the priority, which is the opposite here in Indonesia. I don't know if you have watched this in some of my past interviews. I've told them before that the first ever hired vehicle ride I've ever gotten in Indonesia, I'm asked 5 questions. Hi, how are you? Where are you from? Have you eaten? Are you married? So I was like, excuse me? Who are you to ask me this particular questions? I mean, even my mom doesn't ask me this. And if she does, she has the right to do that. But you don't. You're a stranger to me. And I'm already terrified. All I want was just, this is just a basic transaction. I pay you, you send me to where I want to go. To me, that's what I understand it's supposed to be. But there's so much sharing, and at that time I did not respond to it well enough. And thank goodness that's just a one-time thing. But the thing is that learning to be aware of this is also something worth noting when it comes to work setting, I believe. And I do hope that this is something people can be quite aware of. And second thing, yes, he should be aware that you don't call a woman old. Oh, and one more thing, don't call her fat. Don't call her fat. You are screwed.
That's right.
You are screwed. You are screwed in any kind of situation in that.
Yes. Well, I can really relate with you, Calvin, because you're talking about the 5 questions you get. And I feel like in Taiwan, you get very similar questions like that. Very similar, even on an interview or a professional setting. And of course, if you're not used to that, I see so many of my colleagues and people I've worked with in the past, they just flare up with anger and like, what? How dare you say this to me? But now that I've been in the culture quite a long time, I mean, many times I laugh. And when I'm teaching real clients, some of those things I address on the first time meeting them. I just go down the list. These are the taboos. Let's just start down the list. And they'll say to me like, what? Then what do I have to talk about? And I'm like, I'll give you a list and you must stay in this boundary. Yeah. So even for them, it's very shocking. Like, you're taking away everything I'm used to talking about. Yeah.
Talking to a Eurasian, start with the weather. Talking to an Asian, start with have you eaten?
Yep. Ethan, that's right. You got it. You'll fit in perfect here.
Yes, thank you. For South African, our African, I'm not really aware. Maybe you can give a guideline of that.
I think they're very similar to Westerners, in South Africa, specifically South Africa. Yeah. So how are you doing? Weather, health, how's your health? Are you feeling good today? Everything well? Yeah, I think it's very safe.
Okay. Good enough. Okay, if you guys are worried, food is always the easiest. There's three things that can easily bond people, and this is something that I myself have researched a bit. So the first one is food, stories, and tragedy. And if you have teenage kids, yep, you can have a lot of stuff to talk about. So yeah, those are safe topics to talk about. Go ahead.
Yep, I will agree.
All right, then. All right, Janelle. I'm gonna wrap it up with one final question. Yeah.
Sure.
So, if you can create a character or even a show to dispel the image that the global citizen's life is all about beautiful, privileged lifestyle, what would you want to create and why?
I have to say this is a good question, but quite a hard question to answer personally. Because when I think of the perfect global citizen situation, I mean, what I'm about to say is like a dream. It would be no borders, no passport, love to all nations, and only love for people, humans, and identifying them as humans instead of by a race or nationality. And when I thought about this answer, I said to myself, this is like a dream come true. Only maybe some people would say only a higher power could do this for us. But for me, that's something I would say would be a dream, of course. But if we can accomplish that, then I would say we just have to go back down to individuals. And that is by leading by a good example for individuals. And so like for myself, I want to lead a good example for my son. I want to leave a good example for my company and the people I work with so that they can see that, yeah, it's not perfect what we have around us, but we can make it successful. Just one person at a time, showing our love, dignity, and respect to whoever they are, I think is the key point to being a global citizen.
Okay, yeah, that's beautifully said. Beautifully said. All right, then. So that's all the questions I have. So for those who may be missing out the full thing later, I will be replaying this on my YouTube and on my Instagram TV. So before I end, I need to give some shout outs to firstly Miss Kanako Suwa. Kanako is actually one of my alumna. She is actually a Japanese, but she grew up outside of the US in Boston and in Taiwan. So she's currently in Vietnam. She's also an international teacher. So along with that, of course, I need to give the shout outs to those who already leave a support for this program, but they may not be tuning in live, but they will be tuning it later on. So first off is Mr. Gil Rodriguez, one of my alumna, Sylvia Udvarnovki, Mr. Ben Katik, and Mr. Ronald Kim. So that is thank you so much for those who tune in today. And I really hope that people are taking care of themselves. And last but definitely not least is that thank you so much for making the time to come here today, Janelle.
Calvin, it's been a great pleasure and a joy to be with you. And of course, with all your listeners. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Anything else you would love to mention though, to the viewers?
Yes, be healthy. Stay safe. We are in a bit of chaos right now in Taiwan with COVID-19. So yes, be healthy and stay safe, and show love.
Wonderful, wonderful. An answer from every single mother on the show somehow, but okay. I love to hear that. I love to hear that. No worries. I'm a self-admitted mama's boy, so it's fine. All right then. So that is the end of Global Citizens, episode 95. Need to do better in Japanese. Just to let you know, this is actually a joke that Janelle has with her husband, and living culturally, interculturally at work and at home. So with that, take care, everyone. Have a good day or night. Bye.